The Red Sea, a vital artery of global trade, is ablaze with a dangerous new conflict. On one side, the United States, wielding its military might. On the other, Yemen's Houthi rebels, a determined force locked in a brutal civil war. The fighting, which escalated sharply in March 2025, has pushed the region to the brink and sent shockwaves across the world. This isn't just about Yemen anymore, it's about the global balance of power, the future of the Middle East, and the lives of millions caught in the crossfire. For years, the conflict in Yemen has simmered, often overlooked by the international community. But recent events have brought the war crashing back into the headlines. On March 15, 2025, the U.S. launched a series of airstrikes targeting Houthi positions in Yemen, marking a significant escalation of American involvement. These strikes, the most extensive since Trump's return to the White House, were a response to a wave of Houthi attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea. The situation is especially volatile because the Red Sea is no ordinary waterway. It's a crucial shipping lane connecting Asia, Europe, and the Americas. Over 15% of global trade, including vital oil shipments, flows through this narrow strait. Any disruption here has ripple effects across the global economy, impacting everything from energy prices to the cost of consumer goods. The stakes, in short, are incredibly high. The question now is whether this conflict can be contained, or if it will spiral into a wider regional conflagration with potentially catastrophic consequences. The world is watching anxiously as the Red Sea becomes the latest flashpoint in a region already riven by conflict and instability. The recent escalation began with a barrage of American firepower. On March 15th, U.S. warplanes and drones roared into action, unleashing a wave of airstrikes against Houthi targets across Yemen. The Pentagon claimed to have struck over 30 locations, including Houthi military facilities, weapons depots, and command centers. The message was clear. America was flexing its military muscle, aiming to cripple the Houthis' ability to threaten international shipping. The Houthi response was swift and defiant. Just hours after the U.S. strikes, the rebels claimed to have launched a counterattack, targeting the USS Harry S. Truman, a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier operating in the Red Sea. While the U.S. military acknowledged intercepting several drones, the Houthis insisted they had fired 18 missiles and 1 drone at the warship. The incident, regardless of who's telling the full story, underscored the Houthis' determination to hit back and their growing capacity to threaten even the most powerful military in the world. The consequences of this tit-for-tat exchange were immediate and alarming. At least 53 people, including civilians, were killed in the initial U.S. strikes, according to reports from Yemen. The Houthi attacks, while seemingly less destructive, sent a wave of anxiety through the region. Shipping companies, already jittery after months of Houthi attacks, began rerouting vessels around the southern tip of Africa, adding weeks to journey times and driving up costs. The world watched anxiously, wondering if this was the beginning of a wider conflict or a dangerous gamble by both sides that could quickly spiral out of control. To understand why the Red Sea is aflame, one must delve into the tangled history of Yemen's civil war. The conflict, which erupted in 2014, pits the Houthi movement, a Shia Muslim group with ties to Iran, against the internationally recognized Yemeni government, backed by a Saudi-led coalition. The war has plunged Yemen into a humanitarian catastrophe, leaving millions on the brink of starvation and shattering the country's infrastructure. The Houthis, feeling increasingly cornered and determined to pressure their adversaries, have stepped up attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. They claim these actions are in retaliation for the ongoing Saudi-led blockade of Yemen, which they say is strangling the country and exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. The Houthis also frame their attacks as a show of solidarity with the Palestinians, demanding Israel lift its blockade of the Gaza Strip. For the United States, the Houthi attacks on shipping represent a direct challenge to its interests in the region. The U.S. Navy has long patrolled the Red Sea, safeguarding the flow of oil and commerce. The Biden administration, already facing criticism over its handling of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, views the Houthi actions as a test of American resolve and a threat to global trade. The recent airstrikes, therefore, are not just about Yemen. They're about sending a message to Iran, asserting U.S. dominance in the region, and reassuring allies that America will defend its interests. While the geopolitical chessboard is being rearranged, it's the people of Yemen who are paying the heaviest price. The country is already mired in one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, a direct result of the long-running civil war. Years of fighting have decimated Yemen's infrastructure, crippled its economy, and left millions struggling to survive. The recent escalation of violence has only deepened the suffering. The U.S. airstrikes, while claiming to target military objectives, have resulted in civilian casualties, adding to the grim toll of the war. The Houthi attacks on shipping, while perhaps intended to exert pressure on their adversaries, have also worsened the humanitarian situation. The disruption to shipping lanes has made it even harder to get essential goods like food, medicine, and fuel into Yemen, pushing prices higher and making it even harder for ordinary Yemenis to afford basic necessities. The port of Hodeidah, a lifeline for millions of Yemenis reliant on humanitarian aid, is particularly vulnerable. The fighting has repeatedly threatened to choke off this vital artery, potentially pushing Yemen into a full-blown famine. The international community has condemned the violence and called for a ceasefire, but so far, these pleas have fallen on deaf ears. The people of Yemen, caught between warring factions and abandoned by much of the world, continue to endure unimaginable suffering.